Welcome to the Value Driven Brand Podcast, where you'll learn insights on how to communicate with authenticity, deliver genuine value, and create a memorable experience across your entire customer journey, helping your business become the sought-after leader in your industry. I'm your host, Aileen. Now, on to the show. G'day everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Value Driven Brand Podcast. I am your host, Aileen Day, and today I am joined with another amazing and such a wealth of knowledge, and an international guest this time. Please join me in welcoming Terry McDougall, author of the most fantastic and can I just say, I'm gonna go into this in a minute, but the book is called The Winning the Game of Work, Career Happiness and Success on Your Own Terms. And I recently found out that it has been what's the word I'm looking for, Terry? It's been reviewed. It's been reviewed.
Yes.
It's been reviewed by a woman who I have followed for many, many years in my career, Dr. Lois Frankel, and such a number of absolutely phenomenal names. So congratulations to you on what is a brilliant book, and so many people are frothing at it. I don't know if that's a term that you use in America.
Yes, we use that. We use that term.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yes.
I hope the translation is the same.
Yes.
But for those of you who might not have heard of who Terry McDougall is, she's an executive and career coach and the CEO of Terry McDougall Coaching. She helps high-achieving professionals remove obstacles that keep them stuck so that they can enjoy more success and satisfaction. That's what we're all about in their lives and careers. Before becoming a coach, Terry was a long-time corporate marketing executive where she led teams, developed strategies, and advised senior leaders to drive business results. And as I mentioned before, she is the author of Winning the Game of Work, Career Happiness and Success on Your Own Terms. That feels right up my alley. And she also is the host of her own marketing podcast called Marketing Mambo. And we are so blessed to have you join us today. #blessed. Thank you so much for joining us, Terry. How are you? Now, I'd say today, but it's this evening.
It's yesterday.
It's yesterday.
Yes.
For time warping. How are you over in Chicago? How's life in Chicago?
It's really fine. It's a great time of year, and things are going well with me and my family, and I am thrilled to be here to talk to you about a value-driven brand. Right up my alley.
I love it. See, I love this connection and alignment, even across the world. Now, tell me, I'm always fascinated to learn how it is that people get where they are today. So how is it that you went from leading and running, executive teams down over there and down up over there in Chicago to walking away and going, I'm going to be an author, I'm going to write a book, I'm going to coach people, and I'm going to become BFFs with Lois Frankel? How does that happen? I want to know. Let me live vicariously through you.
Yeah, actually, it's funny. I've answered this question so many times that the more I tell it, the more I realize that it goes back further than what I initially thought.
Wow.
When I first got out of college, well, first of all, I come from a blue collar background. I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
Same.
And yes, so, whoop, whoop. But I set my sights on getting a job in the corporate world. But when I got out of college, my boyfriend's mom had done a little career counseling, and she gave me a book called What Color is Your Parachute? And she advised me not to apply or interview for jobs until I read this book and did all the exercises in it. And What Color is Your Parachute is a career book that was written by the first issue came out in 1970, and they updated every year since then.
Yeah.
But it helped me understand what I like to do and what I was good at. And then you start with yourself, and then you look out into the marketplace and you say, well, if this is what I'm good at and this is what I like to do, where can I find some place that's going to pay me to do that?
Yes.
And so it really shifted my mindset from right at the beginning of my career to realize that actually is a really important key to being successful and happy in your career. And I'm so grateful to Daphne Hubbard, my old boyfriend's mom, who gave me that book. But anyway, I mean, I ended up getting a job in a publishing company, working in the ad sales department, supporting all the salespeople. That helped me learn about advertising and marketing, and just started me on the path to a marketing career. When I was in my late 20s, I went back and got an MBA with a marketing concentration, and then got married right after. And shortly after that, ended up getting a job in marketing with a large national bank here in the US. And I did that for 9.5 years. I mean, it's funny because before I started working in a bank, I thought that it was probably going to be super boring, and that's why I was never attracted to it. But I think like once I got married and I was like, well, I want to like get paid well so we can buy a house and have kids and all this kind of stuff, I was more open to it. And once I got into bank marketing, I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And there's so much more to it than what you see from the outside. And I was mostly working in B2B marketing. I did that for 9.5 years, and then I got recruited. I was in North Carolina. I got recruited by a bank here in Chicago, and I made that move in the early 2000s to come here.
Yeah.
I came in to head marketing for one of the businesses. I stayed there for 12 years. I had 4 different jobs while I was there. I moved around, and I ran marketing for 3 different businesses, and I actually did I headed the event marketing team for the whole company for a year. Ooh. So I in the 12 years that I was in that company, I'd say like 10 of the years were fantastic.
Yeah.
And
that's a pretty good innings. I know you don't do you do what do you call it? Baseball. They have innings, don't they? That's a good inning.
Yes, they do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. 10 out of 12.
But what happened was that the last job that I had, I did not apply for it. I actually didn't want it, but my boss was like, I want you in this role. And, sometimes you just got to do what your boss tells you. And I never thought I didn't think it was going to be a good fit. That's why I didn't want the job. And it wasn't actually a very good fit. And I just felt like I was sort of struggling, not just, because I mean, for a number of reasons. A lot of the reasons had to do with how the company was structured and where they had us in marketing. And there were a lot of like mismatches within the organization of why it was making it really difficult to do this job.
Yeah.
And it just got me thinking, like, I don't really like what I'm doing. I was looking around and I was like, I didn't really see any opportunities. The company I work for was actually foreign owned. And so there was only, there was sort of like a ceiling for roles in the US. And I just didn't see anything that I thought was interesting in the company for me to move on. That had been, for 12 years, that had been kind of my MO, like, okay, maybe there's something different that I can learn something new. But I actually interviewed for some jobs, next level jobs for other companies. But the funny thing is that I started realizing that I wasn't super excited about, even though these were quote unquote good jobs, I didn't like leave it feeling excited. And that just got me thinking, like, maybe I've kind of outgrown this, maybe there's something that I should be doing differently. And it got me thinking about going back to how I started my career. What do you like to do and what are you good at?
Yeah.
And I actually even started looking at myself and saying, like, what is it about marketing that I like?
Yes.
And I mean, I like the creativity. I like the intellectual challenge of understanding the complex businesses that I supported. But the thing that I liked best about it was sitting down across the table from business leaders, understanding their problems and coming up with solutions to help them address the business problems.
Yeah.
It was really that consulting and helping aspect.
Yeah.
And that's actually what coaches do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually had hired coaches a couple times in my career, and also as a marketing leader, I had always invested a lot of time and energy in coaching and mentoring people on my team, and then also people that were just in the greater marketing department.
Yeah.
And I just thought it made a lot of sense to invest in that. You know, it was good for the people because they felt more confident, they were growing. It's great for the company, and it was great for me, you know, and you have really great, smart people working for you that are doing great work.
Yeah.
Made my job easier. So I guess it slowly dawned on me, and I met somebody in networking who actually had been a PR professional, and her story sounded a lot like mine. Like she sort of felt like she had sort of outgrown what she was doing, and she decided to go and get a coaching certification. And she introduced me to the school that she went to, and I checked it out, and I thought, I think I want to do that.
How exciting.
And yeah, initially I really thought that it was just going to be sort of a sabbatical. Like I actually left my job, and I just thought, okay, I'll just sort of detox from the last couple of years of not being happy. I'll figure out what I want to do next. I'll get this coaching certification, and then I'll probably just get another job and just do this on the side.
Yeah.
And then maybe when I get closer to retirement, I'll do it full time. But just going through the program and being around other people who either already had their own businesses or were going to start their own business, I say that entrepreneurial spirit is contagious.
Yes,
and
it is.
I was already, I kind of started having this momentum, and I thought, what the heck? I'm just gonna start my own business and see how it goes. And here I am. It's more than 4 years later, and I'm still out here doing it, and I love it. And I just feel like all the hustle and seeds that I planted along the way are blossoming for me now, and plus I love what I do. I absolutely love it. It's just so wonderful to help people step fully into their potential and really, like I said, expand that overlap between their success and their happiness, because there are a lot of folks out there who are quote unquote successable. Like, they've got the title, they're making the money, but man, are they stressed out? Are they
miserable?
Anxious? Yeah. And, like you shouldn't have to sacrifice that much to, make money or get the title or whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You should have enough space in your life to invest your time and talent in doing great work, but also have enough head space and heart space and time to enjoy yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of what I work on is creating what's called the value-driven brand, so that the offshoot of a value-driven brand is a value-driven life. Because if you have all the components to create a value-driven brand, then it's naturally those components flow into the way you live as well. So, hopefully less heart attacks, less people dying of stress and misery.
Absolutely. What's the point? What's the point? And I mean, I a lot of times will start off coaching engagements with having people do a values assessment, to really see, like, am I living up to the things that I say I value in my life, or where, if there are conflicts between like achievement and spending time with family, just being a lot more intentional about the trade-offs that you decide to make in your life.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's something that's important to do in business as well. It's not all about profit at any cost.
Well,
right?
Exactly right. If it is, you're probably not doing business right. Well, you're not doing life right.
And you're not going to last. You're not going to last, right? It might work for a while, but I mean, we're getting at the heart of what brand is all about. It's really a promise.
Yeah, exactly right. So speaking of brand, this is the Value Driven Brand podcast, and I know for a fact that you have some really amazing insights in how business owners and leaders and entrepreneurs can go and create that value-driven brand for themselves. And the first one that we're going to talk about is around brands being unique. And it is such, like, even just yesterday, I did my quarterly planning for the coming quarter, and I literally, I don't have it with me, but I literally wrote in my planning book, how do you create uniqueness when everybody claims to be an expert when everybody claims to be the solution? How do you do that? Tact, how do you do that in real life? Be unique.
Well, I mean, I think if you don't want to be a commodity, a commodity is something that's sold based on price, right? If you don't want to be a commodity, you have to differentiate your offering. People have to be willing to pay a premium for it. So that means that you've got to think about, what is my unique selling proposition? And I think that the way that you do this is by really understanding the needs of the marketplace. Maybe looking at things differently and understanding, like, what are the pain points that my target audience is feeling? How can I potentially address their needs in a way that's different than the way that my competitors are doing it? Yeah. And, I like to, there's certain brands that I kind of hold up that I think revolutionized this whole idea of being unique and are doing really well. I mean, I think Zappos, I don't know if you guys have Zappos.
Yeah, we don't have them, but we know all about them.
Yes, Zappos is a great one that, you can order shoes and you can return, it's free shipping both ways. And yeah, you're not going to get them on sale in the way that you might at the discount store, but, the convenience of it is, and they understood why people don't want to order shoes through the mail or online, because it's a pain, right? It's a pain if what if they don't fit, if you have to return them, it's a pain. But they understood that, and they differentiated themselves by removing that obstacle, and so people are willing to pay a little bit more than going to your local shoe store that might not have the selection. Yeah. See, they've got the best of both worlds. They've got a tremendous selection, and you don't even have to leave your house to buy the shoes. Yeah. And if you, actually what I would do is order, I live here in Chicago, and so I used to have to commute into the city, and you have to have really good snow boots, because when you're outside all the time, your feet get cold. But when I needed new boots, I would order like 6 or 7 or 8 pairs in different sizes, different styles, and just try them on at home, and then pick one and return the rest of them. Right? Wow. So that was so easy, right? It's so easy. And they understood that. I think obviously Apple is one that people talk about a lot, but Steve Jobs there were MP3 players before the iPod, right? I mean, I knew of them. My kids would go to like a birthday party, or somebody would come and they'd get one, but you couldn't figure out how to make them work. Yeah. Right. And they stepped back and said, what's the pain point here? That most people find it too difficult to understand how to use these things. Yeah. Right. And they were like, what do people want? Well, they want 1,000 songs in their pocket, and they want it to be easy. So they looked at the whole process, and that's what they became known for, is like that human-centered design. And, and we know how, maniacally loyal Apple users can be, right? I wouldn't consider any other phone. I don't care. I just got a new phone and it was $1,000. I don't care.
Only $1,000.
It might have been a little bit more than that, but
that's US. In Australia, we like to pump up the price a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That $1,000 would be much closer to 2,000.
Okay.
In Australia, yes. Add a few taxes and fees onto there, and Bob's your uncle. But that's the point. People still pay it.
Don't even think about it. Don't even think about it.
Yeah, I just had to replace my laptop not long ago, and my old trusty laptop of 9 years. Thank you for serving me well.
Wow, that's amazing.
And everybody was like, "Oh, you need a Mac. You edit videos, you create content. You need a Mac. You can't live without a Mac. Get a Mac." I'm like, I have not one single Apple device in this household. No, it doesn't matter. Get a Mac. And I'm like, I refuse to get a Mac. So I actually got a custom made laptop for probably half the price of a Mac.
Yes. I will say, like, my first computer that I bought was a Mac because, and this is like 25 years ago, because I was doing graphic design. And at the time that, back then the software did not, you had to have either Mac software or,
yes.
And they actually made a lot more software for the Mac for graphic design. So I had a Mac. And then, a few years later, when I needed a new computer, the price differential was such that, and then plus I had like an IBM at work. And so I got it just a PC, and I had PCs for a long time because every time I'd get a new computer, I'd look and I'd be like, oh man, those Macs are so expensive. I don't know if I want to spend the money. But my husband had a photography business and he used a Mac, and he was like, you should just do it. And so the last time that I got a computer, I got a Mac. But I'm so happy that I did. Like I forgot what I was missing. Like everything, like my phone and my computer and my AirPods, like everything works together perfectly. They just understand. That's how they differentiate, right? That's how they're unique, is that they're thinking holistically.
Yeah.
And they're, it's a cult. It's a cult.
It is a bit of a cult, but that's because they've done it so well. And it's, and you mentioned before, it's that human-centered design. And so for people who might not know what that means, and they're kind of going, okay, well, it's great that Apple and Zappos and they've figured out the pain points, but what are maybe a couple of points around, getting out there and figuring those pain points out for myself? How do I do that? Like, what are a couple of things I could do that are easy to just make happen? No excuses.
Yes, I think go out and talk to people that you would like to serve. I mean, well, first of all, talk to your best customers and say, what is it that you love about working with me or my company? What could we do better?
Yeah.
And then, do a little research. And it doesn't have to be, you don't have to hire a research company. You can actually, go on LinkedIn or depending on what kind of business that you have, you can reach out to people. You can do a Survey Monkey and send it out to people and ask them. You can, maybe even incent people to do the survey by saying that, okay, we're going to do a giveaway, or you get to, sample our work if you do the survey.
Yeah.
But just getting curious about what it is that people need that you could provide.
Yeah.
And thinking a little outside the box too, not like, how do I do a Me Too type thing? Like what you want to do is, like, if everybody's zigging, you want to zag.
Yeah.
So that you're differentiated, right?
Absolutely.
This is what makes you unique.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said, keeping up with the Joneses is just how in business we make sure that we're never seen to be different. And everyone that says, oh, this is best practice.
Mm-hmm.
Do it better than best.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, if you know what best practice is, then do it better than best.
Well, it's I think that one of the things that's super interesting, and I was just reading about this in a book about the digital photography. It was Kodak that came up with digital photography, and they were making so much money from film that they shelved the digital photography. And then other companies, developed it separately, and they put it out on the market, and all of a sudden, film became obsolete, and it was way too late for Kodak to catch up. Wow. So, sometimes we have to think outside the box. We have to, maybe sometimes really, when I was in business school, they would talk about, buggy whip manufacturers. Like before the car, right? That like, oh, everybody needs a buggy whip, right? To drive your horses to pull the buggy, right? And if you're just thinking like, how do I become the best buggy whip manufacturer? Well, you're just going to become obsolete.
Not unless you
Right?
pivot into the kink and BDSM scene.
True. I'm not sure if that was big in 1906 or whatever,
Don't
but who knows?
underestimate
I don't
them.
know. Could be. Could be. Who knows what was going on in those barns, right?
My grandmother always used to say to me, "You think you invented that?"
Right. Well, that's true. I mean, you know, what is it? The Marquis de Sade, right? You know, that was like way before, you know, buggy whips probably. So yeah.
But it's true, absolutely. And if you're not, I guess, you know, if you're not looking outside the box and trying to figure out, okay, well, what comes next? And instead of, you know, like being the best in a field, why can't you kind of, I've always loved growing up, people would say to me, Aileen, you're very lateral. And initially I thought it was a insult.
Mm-hmm.
But now I've realized it's actually, I love the fact that people think I'm left of center. I think it's actually quite awesome. And for me, that's my uniqueness, is that I am very lateral thinking, and I think we need more lateral thinkers.
Definitely.
More people to go, I'm going to go sideways instead of, you know, in front, you know, looking at what's in front of me. I'm going to go
absolutely.
sideways. And, you know, when they say, oh, the path, you know, should look like this, mate, make it look like this, because that's where you're going to learn stuff.
Yeah.
So I think
I mean, one of the things that, like, just as we were talking, it just reminded me of this book that I read probably about 10 years ago called Blue Ocean Strategy, which is, the whole idea is that, you know, like where there's the blood in the water, where everybody else is competing, and you know, the sharks, you know, competing for the, you know, circling, right? Like, don't go in the red ocean, like where it's bloody and it's competitive. Like, look out there and say, where is there blue ocean where nobody else is competing? You know, like, and you know, another book that comes to mind is Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Yes.
You know, like, why do people buy this product? You know, and maybe there's some opportunity around why they buy it that you haven't thought of, that you could, you know, innovate or somehow differentiate, you know, what you're doing, so that people, you know, that you become a brand that they're willing to pay a premium for.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So fantastic. Be unique. Stop being like everybody else. It's no fun. We need variety. It's the spice of life, everybody. Thank you. All right. So the second one that we're talking about is how brands can be consistent. Now, this is a big thing for, I guess, me personally, because for me, I am what I call a bowerbird. Now, I don't know if you have bowerbirds in the US, or if you're listening over in any other part of the world outside of Australia, you might not know what a bowerbird is. You might not know what a bowerbird is if you live in Australia. And a bowerbird is this beautiful black and blue bird that builds nests out of shiny objects. And it is constantly on the lookout for new and sparkly things to add to its nest. And it builds these beautiful, gorgeous nests out of all manner of beautiful items. And to me, that's my brain, right? I have all of these sparkly, beautiful ideas, and I'm constantly having to correct myself back to the path to refocus, to stay consistent, because no sooner do I find something that I need to be consistent in than something shiny and sparkly comes and gets my attention, and I want to run off and go and pick that up and play with it. So I call myself a bowerbird. And the reality is that in any part of business, whether you're an entrepreneur or a leader in a business or a business owner, consistency has to be key. It really has to be key. I struggle with it, because I like doing things for a short period of time and then jumping onto the next thing. So how do we live consistency in a brand?
Well, I think of what's the meaning of brand? To me, the meaning of brand is the promise. It's all about, sometimes people think of like the brand as the logo, or the colors, or the little, pitch mascot or whatever that they use in their commercials. And that can be part of the brand expression. But the reality is that people expect, if they're going to follow your brand and they're going to buy from you, they want to understand what am I trading my money and my time for if I'm going to come into your McDonald's? What's it going to be like, right? Like, is there always going to be a Big Mac and fries and milkshakes on the menu? Is the, wrapper on the Big Mac going to look the same? That's reassuring to people. That makes them feel like they can trust this organization. And that's what brand is all about. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't innovate. And in fact, we should be doing that. We should be thinking about like, what's the next thing people are going to expect? It's important for us to do that because, I think in some cases, like all of us are somewhat of a bellbird, right? That we want new things, we want variety, right? But we can't just be, like one day you walk into McDonald's and it's like all purple. And then the next day you walk in and they've, done away with the seating, like it's, or the next time you go in, it's like, well, I mean, I know with COVID, right? But maybe the next time you go in and it's like a make your own burger restaurant, right? Like pretty soon people would be like, I'm not going there because I don't know what to expect. There's no consistency. And then I think, the aspects of brand around color and the logo and all of that, like that's important to be consistent around too. When I worked in marketing, we had brand standards, at the banks that I worked at. And, there was, the logo elements had to be a certain size and a certain proportion to each other. And we weren't allowed to use the logo on certain backgrounds. We could only use the logo in certain colors. And every once in a while, somebody in the business would come along and be like, oh, it's St. Patrick's Day, let's just make it green. And I'm like, no, like this is sacrosanct. We can't do this because it will be confusing. Some of our biggest competitors, their colors are green, right? And so if somebody sees green, they're going to think, it's the other guy instead of the bank that I worked for, and we invest a lot in the brand, and we want that investment to stand by making sure that we're always consistent. Absolutely. And we think about things like, Apple, right? We see that little apple with the bite out of it. Like they don't make it red sometimes and purple sometimes. It's like white or clear. They have their consistency. So we know when we, and even, I don't know if you guys probably don't have Target, but Target is.
We do.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yeah. You see red, like the way that they run ads here is that they usually don't say who it is until the very end of the commercial. Right. So, but I will know it's a Target commercial because it's red. It's that unique red, and it's got the brand personality of Target. So you look and you know who it is.
So, and that's from an integrated marketing point of view. From an entrepreneurial, the way you operate point of view, what are some of the ways that consistency could be achieved?
Well, I mean, it could be that you've decided that from it could be a process type thing. Like I'll give you an example of a plumber that came to our house a couple of years ago. They cleared out some pipes that we have in our basement, and they left a tag with their the name of the plumbing company and their phone number, and then like a little notation of when they did the work, and they attached it to the pipe.
Oh, what a good idea.
In the basement. And so when it came time I didn't remember who the plumber was. And in fact, I think my husband called them. I didn't even know who it was, but I was replacing the carpet in the basement, and I thought, okay, well, I probably should get them to come and like clear out the pipes just to make sure that there's no backups or floods in the basement. And so, this was part of their process, right? That they would leave that there because they understand that people are like, I just need to call a plumber, right? And I don't know who to call. How good is
that?
Right. So they left this tag, and so I just called them. And they were like, oh, yeah, okay. And they came out and did the work, right? So that's just something that could be a consistent part of your process. And it also demonstrates your understanding of the customer, right?
Absolutely.
That you understand that people are, especially if there's an emergency, they're just like, I just need a plumber, right? I've got a flood in my basement, or my toilet's backed up, or whatever. But if you can make it easy for them to remember who to call, and then that's just smart.
So good. And such a simple little innovation as well. That would be, like each tag probably costs $1.
10 cents.
Yeah.
Less than that. It was just like a small piece of cardboard with a piece of wire on it that was attached to the pipe.
Wow. And then you've essentially guaranteed yourself the next job. Like, what a return on investment.
Yes, that's a great ROI on that, 10 cents that little tag cost.
I love it. That is so good. So the third piece that we're going to talk about is represent meaning to the consumer and your employees. What does that mean?
Well, we've talked about being unique, and we've talked about being consistent, and there's some obviously crazy things that we can do to be unique. But if that uniqueness doesn't have any meaning to the customer, and then it's worthless, right? Like we could just say like, oh, everybody that works here has to dye their hair purple or something, and yes, that's unique. But, what if I don't care at all that people's hair are purple? Like, how does that, it doesn't have any meaning for me, right? Unless maybe it's a clown school or something, right? But so this kind of goes back to, when you're trying to decide, like, how do I differentiate my offering? It's going out and talking to people and saying, okay, well, you buy a lot of, I don't know, milk. Like, what is it that has meaning for you? Is it that you like that you're buying from a local farm? Do you like that we have like different flavors? Do you like that we deliver it to your house? We have dairies around here that do home delivery, and if that has meaning for people, and then they're going to be, and actually the dairy that's around us that does that, they do charge a premium. But for some people that has meaning, whether that's like they believe it's fresher, it's more convenient, it reminds them of being at their grandma's house whenever the milkman used to deliver every week.
It's interesting that you say that. I literally just the other day was watching a show on Netflix called Seaspiracy, and it is all about the conspiracy that is going on around single-use plastic choking up the seas, and how ultimately the biggest cause of this pollution is actually the fishing industry, and this whole background of horrendousness going on around the fact that all these tuna safe, dolphin safe type organizations, or these organizations that are around to help clean up the ocean, are actually all connected to the fishing industry, which is the main cause of the problems. And so my partner was like, I don't want to eat fish anymore. And I said to him, well, there's a problem. Like, there's no way of finding out if the fish that you purchase is, propagated ethically. And so these are things that are starting to create meaning to us. And then we started talking about, what about the meat that we buy? What about the eggs that we buy? And I said to him, well, actually, that's why when I first met him, he used to buy like caged eggs because they were the cheapest eggs. and from the supermarket, whereas I will go and pay top dollar for eggs. And it used to be like, why would you pay so much? They're just eggs. I'm like, they're not just eggs. There's a whole thing that goes on behind it that means something to me. And I know that those eggs are farmed just up the road from me. I can go and check on the welfare if I wanted to. We drive past the farm. You can see from the road that it is what it says it is. And therefore I have trust in that brand. So I will pay the premium amount of money, and also I will forego convenience because I have to go to a separate location to pick up eggs. If it means that I am feeling better about that brand. So that makes so much sense to me.
Well, and I think that for many people, part of their identity is how they consume and what they consume. And, we were talking about Apple before. I mean, I would imagine that it's the same in Australia as it is here, that, when the new iPhones come out, people will line up to get them. Now, people are doing that because, to them, it has meaning to be one of the first to have the new technology, for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not that crazy, but for some people that has a lot of meaning, right? And so, if that represents meaning to them, that means that they're going to be more loyal, as long as, you have to think about brands as being in relationships with the consumers, right? Definitely. It really is a relationship, and it is about, most of us, if we're in a happy, healthy relationship, there is consistency, right? And where, we expect our partner to come home every night around the same time, and if they are promising to do something, hopefully they're going to do it at least, maybe in the second time we ask them, right? But there's some consistency there, right? It's not like they're like leaving the house to get milk and they never come back, right? I have heard of that in some relationships.
Listening suddenly feels triggered.
Well, usually those are not, trusting, happy relationships.
You were too good for him.
It's usually that's what you hear in divorce court, right? That's
but you're right. It's a relationship that is based on values and understanding what is meaningful to the people that you want to serve,
and expectations. I think one of the classic mistakes by a very well trusted brand is here in the US, and I don't know if this happened worldwide, but for whatever stupid reason, Coca-Cola decided they were going to come out with the new Coke, like back in the 80s or 90s. And, some people drink Coca-Cola multiple times a day. And, for those of us who, grew up drinking Coca-Cola, it's a very unique taste. And I don't understand at all why they would just decide, we're just going to change the formula. We just think it's a good thing to change the formula, which they tried to do that. And and the reality was that they weren't understanding that taste and that look and the fact that it was so consistent had meaning for people. And it probably, was very emotional too, because they would think about like, oh, when my grandpa used to take me to the store to buy a Coca-Cola, right? Like there's an emotional meaning.
I could give you two examples for the Australian listeners that would be equivalent to when Coke changed the way they did Coke. Number one, when Cadbury chocolate changed to using palm oil, right? Uproar, absolute uproar. It changed the taste of Australia's favourite chocolate, for one. It was very oily instead of creamy. And palm oil is obviously one of the biggest known issues around orangutan monkey population. So Australia suddenly became implicit in the murdering of of these beautiful animals.
Yeah.
And the second uproar was when we have a little snack. We call them biscuits. What do you call them?
Cookies.
Yeah, a savory cookie called Shapes. And Arnott's, the brand that owns Shapes, decided out of nowhere that they were going to completely change the way shapes were made. And they changed the flavorings. And so shapes are iconic in Australia, iconic. They have been around since the dawn of time, and they are one of Australia's favorite savory snacks to eat. And when you go and mess with people's shapes, like
yes,
people in Australia can be differentiated just as they might follow a football team. There's akin to the type of shapes they eat. Right?
Yeah.
So if I, as a pizza shapes lover, meet someone that eats barbecue shapes, I will actually be like, oh, barbecue shapes. Right?
So are they like crackers?
Yeah, crackers. Yeah,
yes,
crackers.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, crackers. So people go crackers over, right? Over changing iconic things like that. So I can't quite remember Coke changing it, but I've never really been a soft drinker either. But my son loves Pepsi. And I, even though I don't really drink soft drink, I do prefer Coca-Cola over Pepsi. Yeah. And so he drinks Pepsi and I'll be like, oh, just have a sip. And they're like,
yeah, it's so funny. That's so in the US.
Envisage how Coca-Cola drinkers felt.
Coke versus Pepsi here too, and never the two shall meet. It's definitely, it's kind of like your crackers example. It's like, I like Coke, I like Pepsi.
Yeah, and it's definitely a thing. So I think from a brand perspective, there's always ways you can innovate a brand, but oh God, don't mess with iconic stuff. Understand the meaning that it has. It could be an emotional meaning. It could be, maybe people are using your product in a way that's different than what you intend it to be used. Yeah. And sometimes if you don't understand the meaning to the consumer, you can really bumble into making some really bad mistakes. And we've, talked about a number of them, and it wouldn't take long for us to come up with many more. But it's all because of the lack of understanding of the meaning of the product to the consumer. It's critical to understand that. I couldn't agree more. It's so funny though, because I think poor Coca-Cola would never realize that we, at Bunnings, which is the Australian equivalent to Home Depot, we would use Coke to clean the blackboards. So you'd have these huge blackboards that would have the prices written of the product in chalk. And the best thing to keep those blackboards spick and span was spraying them and wiping them down in Coca-Cola. And I imagined if Coke Amatil found out that, they'd be like, oh, let's not advertise that one.
But, good point, though, that, you never know how your product's being used. And maybe there's a certain segment of the marketplace that is buying Coke to clean blackboards. And maybe if they changed the formula, maybe it wouldn't work that way. And then they'd be like, gee, why?
Diet Coke, why? Diet Coke doesn't work.
They might be saying, like, why did our market share go down? Yeah. Oh, because we didn't understand the meaning that it had for people at the local, hardware store.
Yeah. We go through a lot of Coke too. I remember one store, they tried to do it on the cheap, and they tried to go and buy like a no-name brand cola, and the boards were just smearing, and they had to bite the bullet and just accept Coke is where it's at. That is
fascinating. That is in it. Fascinating. Oh my gosh. I learned something new every day.
Absolutely. Oh, they are some amazing insights into how you can go and create a value-driven brand. Thank you so much, Terry. I am so appreciative that we got to catch up and learn from the marketing master. yourself. And if you are wanting to get more wonderful insights from Terry, you can, because she has her own marketing podcast. As I mentioned at the beginning, she is the host of Marketing Mambo. And give us a bit of a insight. What do you cover on your marketing podcast?
I talk about, well, what I say is I chat with marketing movers and shakers from around the world. It is not a how-to podcast on marketing. It is, it's about marketing, insights into marketing by people who are doing marketing, or are around marketing. I've had at least a couple of sales people or sales trainers come on and talk about the importance of the relationship between sales and marketing. I've had a change management consultant come on and talk about how you run good change management, because very often in marketing we are leading change. Whether it's a new brand or we're introducing a new product or whatever, it's important to understand how that's done. I've had marketers from a lot of different areas come in and talk, whether it's direct mail fundraising or it's higher education marketing. I mean, I'm just super curious, and I worked for a long time in marketing, but marketing is such a huge arena, and huge. I'm just super curious about how people are marketing in different areas of the economy. And so in many ways it's just me being super curious and meeting cool people and asking them to come and talk to me on my podcast.
That's exactly what I do.
Yes, yeah, it's one of the funnest things that I've done in my life is start a podcast. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, I have an absolute ball. I'm not a huge fan of the production part, but this part, definitely my favorite bit.
Yeah, me too.
And then if we want to get our hands on your book, where is the best, apart from, I'm going to preface this with saying the link to also get your book will be available at valuedrivenbrand.com. I'm out of practice. valuedrivenbrand.com/podcast series, which is also where you're going to find this podcast and the video recording. But apart from that, where else can they go searching for your book?
My book is available worldwide on Amazon.
Do you have one? Yeah. Do you have a copy there? I can see it behind you. There you go. Next to you. There you go. That is what you are looking for. If you are listening, you will just have to go to the website and watch the video as well, see Terry's lovely face, and you can get a copy of her book through Amazon worldwide, and go and check out the reviews from some other amazing business and psychologists and just amazing people in general really have gone and read your book and all agree that your book is where it's at. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That is a fantastic achievement. I am in the midst of writing my first book as we speak. So it's definitely something that I look forward to coming back and telling everybody about. It's a slightly jarring title though, compared to yours. It's called The Joy of Sex.
Okay.
Because I don't know if you can see, I work in customer experience. And customer experience as an acronym is CX. And then when you add in the employee experience, it's CEX. And then I went, hang on a minute, something's missing. I'm going to add in the human experience. Yes. So I do a lot of talking and speaking around the joy of sex.
I love it.
Yes.
That's a nice way to get some attention. But on something that's super important though. I mean, that's, it's funny because we just scratched the surface of how much I could talk about marketing. Customer experience is just so critical, really. It's where the rubber meets the road.
Really is.
And it's so important for organizations to understand that. And that really is, that's the delivery of the brand, of the brand promise.
For sure.
Is the customer experience.
Yeah.
So that's so cool. You know, as mom to mom, I would say my book's been out for about 1.5 years now. And the thing that I would compare it most closely to is giving birth to a child.
Oh, wow.
Because, well, I mean, it literally took me about, 9 or 10 months to write my book. And it was at times very painful. I had a lot of doubts at times, like, oh, is this gonna, what kind of book is this gonna be? Are people gonna like it? Yes. And then once it comes out, it has a life of its own. It's out there in the world, interacting with people, just like eventually your children do. Yeah. And it's been really fulfilling. And you do sort of forget the pain of writing it. Just like that's why I've got 3 kids, so clearly I forgot about the pain of childbirth, and
that's hilarious. I love it. Yeah. That's a great analogy. And I'd say by the time I'm all said and done, it probably would be a nine-ish month activity. Yeah, exactly. So I'm about halfway through now, so I am looking forward to giving birth.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
Now, before I let you go, if you haven't tuned in before, you might not be aware of this, that all of my guests are kind enough to fill in a guest profile form for me. And that gives me some deeper insights into the type of human that they are and the experiences that they've had in their life. And one of the questions that I ask all of them is, what is the song that makes you ready or pumped up for anything? Do you remember the song that you told me?
Yes, it's Walking on Sunshine. Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves.
I love it.
Sunshine, yeah.
Such a banger. Now, for those of you who might not know, I ask that question, because I think it gives beautiful insight into the type of human that I'm working with. And I then also go and add that song onto a playlist that is available at valuedrivenbrand.com/podcast series. So where you find this podcast with myself and Terry, you will also find the link to the Spotify playlist, and it will have Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves available on that playlist as well. So as I say to everybody, once you've downloaded that playlist, if you are not pumped up and ready for anything, I think you need to go back to bed and start again. Because
that is such a cool idea. I love that.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And I think only maybe twice I've had someone come and say the same song. So it's actually been really fantastic and it's so eclectic. We have techno, we have hip hop, we have pop from the 70s, we have symphony orchestras, like just the inside, getting into people's heads to see what actually pumps them up and gets them ready for anything is just the piece of resistance for me. So thank you so much for your contribution, Terry. And thank you so much for joining me today on the Value Driven Brand podcast.
Thank you for having me. It was really very fun. I really enjoyed it.
That is so good. Now, as I mentioned before, you will be able to find this podcast and all of the ways that you can get in touch with Terry and get her book and access her podcast, Marketing Mambo, on Value Driven Brand my poor transcript editor is going to have a field day with me. He's going to say, Aileen, really, what were you doing? It is valuedrivenbrand.com/podcast series. That is where you will find all of this information. And obviously the podcast will be available on all good podcast outlets. So again, Terry, thank you so much. I look forward to releasing this and getting to listen to your podcast as well and learning more about how you help people create a value-driven brand. That is it from me today. Until next time, please get out there and deliver value to somebody else out in the world, because we all know what goes around comes around. I'm Aileen Day. Until next time. Thanks for listening to the Value Driven Brand podcast with your host, Aileen Day. Is your business struggling to become known as the sought-after leader in your industry? Access our Value Driven Brand quiz and special 3-part podcast series to identify the gaps and what you need to focus on first. Go to www.valuedrivenbrand.com/podcast series. That's valuedrivenbrand.com/podcast series. Tune in next time where we discuss more ideas on how you can deliver your own value-driven brand.